Hi, my name is Jesse Welsh, and my presentation is on freedom in North Korea. The fight for freedom in North Korea is a constant struggle, whether it's just trying to get out of the country, making it through China, through other hostile countries, into South Korea or any other safe country, and even adjusting to a new way of life. The Asian Underground Railroad functions the same way as the Underground Railroad in the early United States did when it came to helping slaves escape. I have studied Asian history, some general Asian studies, and then communism in the 20th century. And for my research, I read books, listened to TED Talks, read articles, scholarly articles, and some YouTube channels. Yami Park and Haeun Seo-lee, they are human rights activists from the Hyeosan town of North Korea. It is at the border of China. They both snuck into China while they were younger for very different reasons. And there are times in China which both of them spent a number of years there before making it to South Korea. Those have also been exceptionally challenging, albeit for different reasons in their specific cases. And then their resettling in South Korea has also been very, very challenging as well. Daniel Tudor, he's a British author based in Seoul, South Korea, and he has written several books about North Korea. So here's a little bit of what I'm going to talk about today. Life in North Korea, escaping, settling in South Korea, Link, which is a nonprofit that I hope to work for after graduating, the Kim regime, and how to move forward in this fight. So North Korea is known as the Hermit Kingdom, where the people are effectively trapped. The only people who are allowed to leave are foreign diplomats and people with very specific work permits. Trying to escape unauthorized, you can be imprisoned, tortured, and often executed. It is not uncommon for defectors to have methods of suicide ready in the event that they are caught, because in many cases, suicide is a better fate than being sent back to North Korea. Any foreign media is also highly illegal. As technology advances, it becomes easier to smuggle media into North Korea. Back in the 90s, the biggest reason for defecting was hunger, because while the Soviet Union was still around, they were providing North Korea with food. So the citizens were provided food by the state. They just had to be extremely obedient at all times. Without the food being provided, people have to resort to hustling, black markets, and stuff like that in order just to survive another day. So, and nowadays, with a lot more foreign technology being smuggled in, such as movies, South Korean drama, and any sort of Western media, most younger people today realize that what they're being told by their government is pretty much all lies. And they only let tourists see what they want them to see, such as the city of Pyongyang, very specific tourist spots, and really nice things such as water parks and ski resorts. And they have a very strict social credit system known as Songbun, where only the elites get to live in this capital city, Pyongyang. The city of Pyongyang itself, where a typical person in the top 1%, they live by North Korean standards, it is an exceptional life. However, the amount of luxuries they are afforded is less than a typical student in North Korea. Less than a typical student at UNLV. So the majority of us listening to this presentation have more luxuries than 99.5% of the people in North Korea. Only the elite of the elite have access to things like Western media and actual luxuries. And outside the capital city, most of the people live in extreme poverty. Hunger, as I said before, was the biggest reason most North Koreans used to defect, and today it is exposure to foreign media. From the time Kim Jong-un took power in 2011, he was tired of the embarrassment of constantly seeing North Korean defectors on foreign media, so he decided to make crossing the border much more difficult. The COVID-19 pandemic has made it nearly impossible to escape. As you can see the chart in the bottom of the slide here, the amount of defectors was over 2,500 before Kim Jong-un assumed power, and then it fell to around 1,500, and then down to around 1,000, and last year it was only around 200. Now, it is impossible to know when this pandemic is going to end, especially on North Korea's end, and when the border will open back up. Once someone makes it out of North Korea and into China, it's very rarely they'll try to go through the demilitarized zone into South Korea, because it is by far the most heavily fortified border on the planet. In China, they are subject to a lot of risks, including human traffickers and Chinese authorities. If they are captured by Chinese authorities or authorities in any country that are friendly with North Korea, they will be sent back and condemned to a life of torture and possible execution. In many cases, being caught by human traffickers is considered a mercy, depending on the specific situation. As horrible as it is to say that, life in North Korea can be that bad for a huge majority of their citizens. And like I was saying before, the Asia Underground Railroad is the path that people take to make it to South Korea. And any defectors that make it to South Korea will have automatic citizenship. It is not all instantaneous, however. Once a defector makes it to South Korea, they will be placed in an immigration camp. And by reading books that talk about how these camps were, they are very similar to the immigration camps over at the U.S.'s southern border. For a few weeks, once they are vetted as to ensure they're not spies, they are allowed to go into a specialized school to learn how to adjust to a new way of life. They learn things such as being able to criticize your government, not having to have your hairstyle a certain way or wear certain sets of clothes, and even things like being able to call the police for things such as domestic abuse. And after a few months, refugees are able to resettle, although the challenges do not stop there. They are significantly behind in education. If you were caught up in your education in North Korea, if you go to South Korea, you will be at least 2 years behind. And discrimination does happen. For example, many establishments in South Korea, as well as Japan and probably many other Asian countries, they have establishments that they only let their own natives enter. I personally have been kicked out of several bars at the entrance because I was not Japanese. And South Korea does the same thing even to North Koreans. And even simple places like gaming facilities, they will tell a North Korean they cannot enter because they are a foreigner. And the amount of freedom is so overwhelming that refugees are just simply not prepared for it, and they often become homesick and miss life in North Korea just because of the structure they are used to, and also just general homesickness that they have for their hometowns, which most of whom will never see again. Liberty in North Korea is a nonprofit that I hope to work for after graduating, and the number of people they've helped escape in a safe and dignified way is 1,201. However, this number has been the same throughout the entire semester. And I hope that once this pandemic ends, then this number will start going back up. Now, as for taking down the Kim regime, it is impossible to know for sure how it can be done. Personally, I believe that there is a way to do this without forcing Korea to become one country or without going to war with the Kim regime. And I believe the best way to do that is for President Biden to work with the international community to pressure China to, one, allow North Korean defectors to navigate through there safely, and two, for Xi Jinping to pressure Kim Jong-un to allow the country to open up, since China is by far the biggest gatekeepers to the North Korean regime. Without China, North Korea simply cannot function. So if we're able to pressure China to force Kim Jong-un's hand, we can free the country effectively without having to shoot a single bullet. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. It has been an absolute pleasure getting to work on this project, and I do intend to continue this research after this semester is over and even after I graduate. And here are some sources that I have used while making this presentation and while writing my paper. Thank you again for listening. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening.